welcome to the Rizcast podcast. I am here with two of my good friends, Anna Blanc and Logan Murphy.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
We're in Logan's studio here recording this podcast, and this is not where we wrote We Lift You Up.
Correct.
This is not the room we wrote it in, but we write here a lot together. So on this podcast, I want to kind of take another look at some behind the scenes stuff about the song. I know I already did an episode on this, but I wanted to bring Anna and Logan in and just ask them a couple questions about it. And also, this is the first guests
Crazy.
Ooh.
I've ever had on the Rizcast podcast.
Had no idea.
So
What a privilege.
this is big.
I mean, of course, I know. I've heard them all.
Yes, avid listeners, right?
Was certain
Logan?
we're the first
Yeah,
guests.
I'm a Loadcaster on the Rizcast podcast
There you go.
in the studio cast.
That's a good play on the name there.
Okay, so I have a question.
Okay. Oh boy.
So the Rizcast podcast,
Yes.
why? Just why?
That's a great question. Great question. So I was talking with a friend of mine a couple of years ago. We were kind of ideating about, and by the way, it's one of my favorite words, ideate.
Ideating.
Nice.
Ideating. A publisher used that with me one
approve.
time. It's great.
Nice.
I love to ideate over some good food, some good coffee. Anyway, so me and a friend of mine were kind of talking about this, starting a podcast. And I was just like, okay, do I want to go like strictly in like the worship world, like have the word worship leader in it? And there's like so many worship leading podcasts. And then like, I don't want to just do like my name. It's like, it's kind of lame, like the Justin Rizzo podcast. It's kind of like, So, humor's part of my life, my world. Like I try not to take myself too seriously. And so he just said this name, the Rizcast podcast. And I laughed and he's like, well, I think we got it. And I was like, so it took me a couple of weeks of sitting on it, but I remember texting him. It's a good friend named Michael. And I said, hey bro, I think we're going with the Rizcast podcast. So it's kind of like a little...
You knew. You heard it and you knew.
I was like, this is so cheesy. I'm going to use it.
I laugh every time I hear it.
And he listens to my show daily. No, but so every week when I do a podcast, I'm just like, welcome to the Rizcast podcast. And it's like, I don't know if I should laugh or if someone else is laughing or, whatever it is. That's
They're laughing.
So that's kind of the story behind that.
Nice.
So I want to, before we get started, have you guys kind of just introduce yourselves a little bit. So Anna, just give us a minute about yourself.
Yes, my favorite role is at home, wife to my husband and mom to 3 crazy boys. And it is insanity a lot of times, and it's my favorite place. I've also been singing at IHOP for 16 years and songwriting, and I absolutely love singing the word. Yeah, that's about it.
And you're from Colorado.
I am from Colorado.
Colorado.
Yes.
So you left the mountains 16 years ago to come to the plains.
Shocking, I know.
Yes.
I did that.
You've performed songs on different forward music albums that have come out. You had your hand in dozens more songs as a co-writer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Songwriting is one of my favorite things to do. I love words. I love putting them together and finding things about the Lord I hadn't seen before through lyrics. I love it.
So I know that you love words. I've never asked you this. Why do you love words?
They're just, every single word is packed with meaning, and the ways you put them together can unlock the heart in new ways every time you hear them. I'm enthralled with them. I love reading them. I love singing them. I don't know. I'm a word nerd.
How many words a month do you read? How many books do you read a month? I know this from your Instagram.
Maybe like 3 or 4.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. You know what they say, leaders are readers.
I did not know that.
So we're honored to have you here on the podcast
Thank
today.
you.
So Logan, phenomenal drummer. You're on my team for years as a drummer, but so much more than a drummer. You're an engineer. You're a producer. We're sitting in your beautiful studio right now here in Kansas City from Kentucky.
Kentucky, yep. Yeah, I've been in Kansas City. It'll be 10 years or 9 years in January, which is just pretty wild. Time flies like that. But yeah, moved out here, jumped on staff at IHOP, and have just been pursuing production and writing kind of alongside that. And so, yeah, drummed with you for about 4 years and was on a team for another couple, and just jumped off to do full-time production and writing about 2.5 years ago.
And what does that look like? I mean, when someone out there hears full-time production and writing, they probably think that you're waiting tables 50 hours a week and writing till midnight every night.
Yeah, I'm honestly living my little dream. I love it. Essentially, I wake up and do my 40 hours a week in the studio. I pretty much am with clients 2 or 3 days a week, helping them kind of dream up their songs and pretty much just helping them achieve whatever goal that is, whether it's radio or more of like a devotional record, pretty much just whatever the goal is. I help facilitate that and kind of have the pool of people to bring in to help make their little dream come true for a record. Yeah.
And you also write and produce your own music.
Yep. So yeah, I do a band thing and just kind of a couple personal projects that are onto sync licensing, which is kind of a new little world for selling music to film and all that kind of stuff. A lot to unpack there, but that's kind of what I do in a nutshell.
And what's your band name?
The band is called Familiar.
Familiar.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
Not Family Liar.
Where can people listen to this band?
Anywhere you stream music.
Anywhere you stream music.
We have a bunch of goofball videos on YouTube.
So fun.
They're really good.
Yeah, it's super fun. Yeah.
So check out his music. And if someone is ever interested in cutting a record, cutting a single,
of course,
they can hit you up for that. So We Lift You Up came out about a week ago. And if you haven't heard it yet, you can stream it wherever you stream music. There's a music video that you guys can check out as well. But this song we wrote together, and it's probably one of the easiest songs I've ever written.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
And I told this story a little bit on my previous podcast, but we had gone away for a couple of days. We were part of a writing camp here at the House of Prayer in Kansas City. So there's like 15 of us who had gone to a studio on some property that we own here, had gone for 3 days. And so we wrote all day together from 10 a.m. to like 5 p.m.
Yep.
And I checked in my previous podcast, I couldn't remember which song we wrote, but it's one called I Will Run, because I was trying to think of what awesomeness we wrote before this. And so we'll have to maybe look at that song and see if it is indeed awesome. I'm not sure. But so we wrote together from 10 to 5, and it was, a good day, mostly uneventful. Like I'm not, it was good. So we broke at 5 for dinner. We have kind of a communal dinner with all the other writing groups that were writing. And then I seem to remember it was about 5:45, and we were going to be ending at 8 that night. And we were kind of talking like, hey, do we want to like go back into the studio and, write another song, or do you want to just, call it a night and end early? And we chose to go back to the studio. So Logan, kind of bring us into your experience there when we went back into the studio.
Yeah, I feel like usually by that point of the day during camps, you're usually pretty fried, like
totally
mentally,
fried.
Especially because I feel like the three of us, we write kind of quick. So like 2 a day is not like abnormal, but usually by that point you're like kind of fried on the idea front, And so I wasn't like stoked to go back and start another song. I feel like it's more like you're in sprint mode for those few days when we like did the camps and all that. And so, yeah. And I remember we were talking about, we'll just keep it really simple, just like acoustic or piano and vocal. And we all talk about this often, that like, if a song stands with just that, then it's a good song. And so I think I just remember that. And then, yeah, you guys kind of went into lyric mode, and I started messing with some key stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Anna, what do you remember about that?
Yes. Well, background on these songwriting camps, every group writes one song in a 10-hour day. But for everyone who knows Justin, he's such an underachiever that I've never written in Justin's group and done less than 2 songs, sometimes 3.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we had like, what was it, like an hour left?
Something
and usually
like that,
you're
yeah.
like, oh, okay, we're fried, we're done. We're thinking about like getting home to our families. But when you're in Justin's group, you put your head down and you run and you go for it. So that's what we did that day. And I'm so thankful because this was like one of the songs that came the easiest that I've ever written.
Yeah.
And it was like we locked in and went somewhere together.
Yeah.
It was really special time.
It was like an hour and a half, hour 45, and it was done.
Yeah. Did one of you all like have a start of something?
So yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, Logan. So I came with what I would call a pretty magnificent idea. I don't remember the melody, which I know that means it's not memorable, but I'm sure it was great. But yeah, so we sat down, and one of the things that you do when you write a lot of times is you look at choruses the Lord has given you, whether in your own personal time or in a set or whatever. And so I came with this chorus So much more than a man. You're the embodiment of God in heaven. In your human frame, the memory and knowledge of all things ever made, which, upon reading that now, it's pretty cumbersome and there's a lot of words.
I mean, it's shocking that we could beat that or that didn't make it in the song.
It's true.
It's very surprising.
It's really true. Maybe we'll have to do that again sometime, write that song. But so that's kind of what I brought to start with. And that kind of led us down this train of, focusing on Jesus in Christology. So Anna, I want to ask you, I mentioned this in my last podcast as well. We've known each other for a lot of years. We've written together for a lot of years. You're on the same team. So I know you fairly well. And you get this like mode, this look sometimes when you have something. And I'm not sure if it's a journal or a notepad or whatever that you have. And when you kind of you get this, your head goes down, your pen is furiously scribbling something down. And so I remember seeing that happen. And then when that happens, I've kind of learned I think Anna's on the hunt of something. She's on the scent of something. Just give her a couple of minutes. So tell us about kind of the verses and the lyrics for this song.
Yeah. Something I love, and I actually came from the chorus you brought, was focusing on Jesus and who he is. And I love the verse. I can't remember where it is. I think it's Paul calls Jesus the treasury of wisdom and understanding. And I picture him like a treasure box, a treasure box of beauty. And so you can open the treasure box and pull out different treasures and take each one into hand and look at it and study it and learn something new. And that's what I felt like was happening as we were writing these lines. I was looking at him as a dreamer. What does he look like as a dreamer? He's thinking he dreamed up the entire earth from nothing. What does he look like as a redeemer? What does he think about people? An architect. I mean, each one of these names that we call him in this verse 1 was just, I felt like taking a different treasure, a gem, and just turning it over and staring it down.
And scientist is in these lyrics as well. It didn't quite make the cut.
Is it really?
But yeah, we tried to squeeze in scientist.
Oh, that's amazing.
In there. That would have been quite the feat. I feel like this is one of the most Godward focused songs that I've been a part of in quite some time, where yes, there's a couple of mentions there about us and, to our weak and trembling faith, you are the rock, but it never quite goes me focused, and that's something that I love about this song. And I don't remember that being even an intention. There's been other writing sessions where I know we've sought to do that and maybe we've done it, maybe we failed miserably, but this wasn't one of those times that I remember, let's write a Godward focused worship song that doesn't talk about how the love of God has touched my life. And, which obviously you can never sing about that enough. I mean, that's an amazing reality.
I love that. I feel like we even broke it down in verse 1, to me, says kind of the big picture of who he is from eternity past. Verse 2 is the incarnation. His heart starts beating. He's immortal and yet a man. Verse 3 is what he does on the earth. And verse 4 is the end of his reign and what he's going to do in the end and being the king of the earth. But I love that it's all staring at who he is. And he's been so many things through all the ages and will be so many more, that there's so much information about him and who he is. It was it didn't need to be about us. There was so much beauty in him that we could just camp there for the whole song.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second, because this is really something I know that's on my heart. I know that we've talked about this before when we've been writing. I feel like and I mentioned this in my previous episode as well, that the pendulum has swung so far in the direction of me, myself, and I focus songs and what God has done for me, which is incredible. And like I said in my previous episode, I mean, we can't sing about the cross of Christ enough. We can't sing about the benefits of that. I mean, I would probably be dead somewhere, definitely, on the inside. I mean, who knows where I would be if I hadn't given my life to Christ, if he hadn't have drawn me to himself. And that happens through the cross. And so obviously we cannot sing about what he's done for us enough. But let's talk about this for a second. Godward focused songs. And would you guys agree that kind of what we're seeing in the larger worship movement, obviously we're making some sweeping generalizations here, but from our limited perspective, I feel like the pendulum has swung way into this kind of what what God's done for me reality, which is beautiful. And I'm not trying to undermine that or say it's not real or worthy of our worship and our songs. But I feel like there's a swinging or a centering of a pendulum that needs to happen to bring more focus upon him, singing to him, not just what he's done for me, but like, you are worthy because you are worthy.
Yeah, I feel like just as a worshiper, it's easy to make it about me. Like, I shouldn't go to church. It's really not to go get something. You get ministered to all the time, and that's great, like in a room, but it's more like, let's like get together and like exalt the Lord, you know? And so I think it's refreshing sometimes to get the focus off of me and just like, hey, in this room of 50 people or whatever, we're just like going to look at him and not all the things that I do to make me feel better or he does to make me feel better. But it's just kind of like sitting and looking for a second, which I think is like what we're made to do.
I love that. I think that part of why that's so powerful, focusing on him, is because if it weren't for him, we would still be dust, like a pile of nothing is what we were until he came, formed the dust and breathed into us and made an eternal being. And so now it can be sometimes such a temptation to have our eyes fixed on ourselves. But I feel like in worship more and more, the Lord is drawing me to take my eyes off of myself and lift them up to where he is and who he is. And that's the starting point even of my worth and my value and my life is him. The one who breathed into the dust is the one who defines everything about my life and even everything that makes me great as a living, breathing, eternal being. And so I want to always start there and look at who he is and see his glory and his majesty. And I want to be delivered of my self-obsession. Even that's a prayer I've been praying. Deliver me, like help me, lift my eyes from me and all the like conversations I have in my mind about myself with myself, and to actually be focusing on who he is, and that being the starting point even of all the nitty gritty of my life. And those songs are so beautiful because he came and he, with that glorious beating heart, was kneeling down at my feet and washed my feet. And that's a story and a song we need to sing 100,000 times. But it's only a glorious story because the one who's washing our feet is the immortal God who took on flesh. And so I feel like that in my worship, that's my starting point, is him. And then I want to sing also those songs about what he's done because he's the one who makes that story glorious too.
Yeah. And it's almost like those songs become more powerful when you know or get a better picture of like who is doing that for you. And so the songs like coincide for sure, but I think it's nice to just take that breath and like, wow, this is like who's doing that, you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a little listen here to a couple of verses of the song, and then we'll come back and we will wrap this up.
There's glory in the beating of your heart. For immortality was yours to start. And if you don't speak, creation falls apart. Jesus, we worship you. We lift you up, we lift you up. Oh Jesus, we lift you up. Be glorified, be glorified. Oh Jesus, be glorified. You make the blind to see, the lame to walk. You reach to the accused without a pause. To our weak and trembling faith, you are the rock. Jesus, we worship.
verse, specifically verse 4, really, really stands out to me. All thrones and powers know you are the king. For thousands of their best fall short to bring just an ounce of all the strength that's in your being. That's so powerful. That's one of my favorite verses. I love that. Well, before we wrap up, I would love to ask you guys, there's a lot of people listening who listen to this podcast who are creatives. Some of them are worship leaders, songwriters, but there's all kinds of people who listen to this, painters, dancers, whatever it is. Would love to ask you guys, if you had to give one piece of information, one encouragement, one edification to a creative on their journey, what would that be?
I think something I would say is don't be worried about who's going to see or hear your work of art or creativity before you even start it. I feel like so many times we're worried about who is our audience, who's going to see it, and will it matter before we even start. And I feel like that line of thinking will just stifle any ounce of creativity that you have. Because if you're worried about who's going to read your book before you write it, or who's going to see your painting or where it's going to hang before you start, you're thinking about the wrong thing. Start with what put that fire inside of you to make this piece of art or to write this song, and start there and foster the flame. Get it started. Just be creative. Maybe it's like a seed. You're sowing your seed, and the Lord can cause it to grow up into a mighty harvest. He can have it touch one person and change their life. He can have it touch 5 people. He can take it from your attic where you're playing the piano and writing a song and have it reach the ends of the earth. And he's the one who's in charge of who's going to hear it and who's going to be impacted. And if you're the one thinking about that too much from the beginning, you're not even going to take your seed and out of your pocket and sow it. So that would be my advice, is just to get started, be creative, sow your seed, and entrust the fruit to the Lord.
That's really good. Foster the flame in your attic.
Foster the flame. Start that fire in your attic. Burn it down.
Okay. Disclaimer here. The Rizcast podcast does not endorse. That's really good. Really, really good.
Yeah, I actually kind of had a similar thought. And just to piggyback on that too, like, I feel like all the songs that I don't finish are the ones that I like start writing to like be cool. You know?
Wait, say that again.
Like all the songs that I like, I want to write a song today because I want it to impress someone. Those are like always the ones that I'm like, don't finish, because you just second guess everything you're touching and doing. But like the ones where you just like are overflowing seem to be always the ones I'm most proud of, which is just interesting. But no, yeah, a few weeks ago, I like saw this video of this painter, not like a professional painter or anything. Someone asked him like, oh, you paint, like, are you good at painting? And he's like, that's like the wrong question, because I'm not like trying to sell my art. It's like, I paint because the goal is to paint. You know, he's not like trying to make something to impress someone or to sell it or like show the world on a wall. It's just like, it's his outlet. And I thought that was really cool. Like kind of similar to what you said, like, why did you start? For me, music and writing was like kind of a therapy form for me as like a teenager and into my 20s and stuff. And I feel like if I like started writing music onto like making it big or like being a pop star or whatever it is, I probably just would have given up, because that's not like, that motive just doesn't last. It's like I write music unto writing music because it like fuels me, and it's always exciting when like something you create is sick and you're proud of it. That's fun, but even that, it won't like fuel me to keep writing.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so good. I love that. And I think, I talk to worship leaders a lot about songwriting and, with worship specifically, I mean, in every realm of creativity, because of the dawn of social media, and everyone can have a YouTube channel or a TikTok or an Instagram, and they're displaying their craft all the time. It can be really, really easy to constantly be looking for worship leaders at, well, that's what this movement's doing. That's what this movement's doing. Why would I, at my 50, 500, or 5,000 member church, ever write a song? There's so many songs. Spotify is full of worship songs. There's new songs, on the weekly. Why would I ever contribute? And I asked them this question: is songwriting for you, or I'll ask you as a creative, is painting or dancing or whatever, is it a hobby or is it a calling? If it's a hobby, you know, I spend money on some of my hobbies, but they probably don't consume my life. If they do, I probably have a problem. But, you know, if it's a hobby, great. Like, you know, maybe steward that a little bit and invest in that a little bit. But if it's genuinely a calling from the Lord to songwrite or to do whatever your creativity is, then I believe there's a mandate, if you will, from heaven to steward that and see that forth. And I tell worship leaders all the time, I don't think God's called you to be a perpetual cover band. I love what movements have given us for our Sunday morning worship experiences, and they help us because there are songs that the whole earth knows. And when you strum the first chord, the first melody, everyone, those 10,000 people are going to sing it, right? But there's also something to be said for what is a song God's given you. It might be for you in your prayer closet. It might be for you in your congregation, for your county, for your state. Who knows? But just to take that first step and not just, you know, it's the great statement. I'm trying to remember the exact quote. God will call you, but God will not equip you. Once you feel the call from the Lord, you have to then get yourself equipped. And that means getting off of your hands that you're sitting on your couch and actually like getting up and doing something and putting your pen to the paper or beginning to type or beginning to sing or whatever it is. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out and talking about this song. If you have not heard it yet, you can stream We Lift You Up wherever you stream music. You can check out the music video. And here's to many more songs.
Cheers.
Jesus.